Imagine being able to walk into a store without feeling a twinge of anxiety about overspending. Envision having a savings account that's actually growing, not just sitting idle. For many of us, financial freedom feels like a pipe dream, a fantasy that's always just out of reach. But what if I told you that the obstacle standing between you and financial peace of mind isn't your math skills, but your mindset? Welcome to Money's Not a Math Problem, a revolutionary approach to budgeting that's all about shifting your perspective. Author Jade Warshaw knows firsthand what it's like to be trapped in a cycle of financial stress. But through her own journey, she discovered that the key to breaking free wasn't about mastering spreadsheets or pinching pennies. It was about transforming her relationship with money. As we dive into this book, you'll learn how a mindset-focused approach can be the game-changer you've been searching for. You'll meet people who've turned their financial lives around by simply changing the way they think about money. And you'll discover the surprising ways that a simple shift in perspective can lead to significant financial savings. For instance, have you ever caught yourself buying something just because it's on sale, or treating yourself to a pricey dinner after a tough day? Those impulse purchases might seem harmless, but they can add up quickly. By becoming more aware of your emotional spending habits, you can break the cycle of overspending and start building wealth. So, what can you expect from this book? Over the next few chapters, we'll explore the myth of math-based financial struggles, the importance of mindset in financial management, and the benefits of a mindset-focused approach. You'll gain practical tools and insights to help you overcome financial fears and achieve a more stable, secure financial future. So, are you ready to shatter the illusions that have held you back from achieving financial freedom? Let's get started on this journey together and discover how a fresh perspective can lead to a brighter financial future. Section 1. I used to think that financial struggles were just a matter of math. If I could just get the numbers right, if I could just budget correctly, then I'd be set. But the more I worked with people who were struggling financially, the more I realized that math wasn't the problem. In fact, most people I met were actually pretty good with numbers. They could balance their checkbooks, they could calculate their expenses, and they could even make a decent budget. But despite all that, they were still struggling. That's when I started to realize that financial struggles aren't just about math, they're about mindset. It's not just about knowing how to budget, it's about understanding why you're making the financial decisions you're making. It's about recognizing the emotions and thoughts that drive your spending habits and learning how to manage them in a way that supports your financial goals. Now, traditional budgeting approaches often overlook this aspect of financial management. They focus on the numbers, on cutting expenses and increasing income without ever stopping to consider the emotional and psychological factors that influence our financial decisions. But the truth is, our emotions and thoughts play a huge role in shaping our financial reality. For example, have you ever found yourself overspending when you're feeling stressed or anxious? Maybe you've had a long day and you just want to treat yourself to something nice, or maybe you're feeling overwhelmed and you use shopping as a way to cope. Whatever the reason, the result is the same. You end up making financial decisions that don't align with your goals and that can ultimately lead to financial struggles. I know this from personal experience. I used to be a bit of an emotional spender myself. I'd get stressed or anxious and I'd find myself browsing online shopping sites or wandering through stores looking for something to buy. It wasn't until I took a step back and started to examine my behavior that I realized what was going on. I was using shopping as a way to calm myself down, to distract myself from my worries. And it was working, in the short term at least. But in the long term, it was wreaking havoc on my finances. I'm not alone in this, of course. I've worked with plenty of people who struggle with emotional spending, and it's amazing how often it's linked to deeper issues like anxiety or low self-esteem. Take Sarah, for example. Sarah was a successful business owner in her late 30s, but despite her outward success, she was struggling with financial anxiety. She'd lie awake at night worrying about her expenses, and she'd spend hours each day obsessing over her budget. But no matter how hard she tried, she just couldn't seem to get her finances under control. It wasn't until Sarah started to explore the emotional roots of her financial anxiety that things started to shift. She realized that her anxiety was linked to a deep-seated fear of not being enough, of not being able to provide for herself or her loved ones. And once she started to work on that fear, once she started to develop a more compassionate and confident mindset, her financial struggles began to ease. Now, I'm not saying that math doesn't matter. Of course, it's essential to have a solid understanding of your finances, to know how to budget and save and invest. But what I am saying is that math is only half the equation. The other half is mindset. It's understanding the emotional and psychological factors that drive your financial decisions and learning how to manage them in a way that supports your goals. So how do you do that? How do you start to develop a more mindful, more compassionate approach to financial management? For me, it starts with self-awareness. It's about taking the time to understand your own thoughts and feelings, to recognize the patterns and habits that drive your financial decisions. It's about being honest with yourself and being willing to confront the parts of yourself that may be holding you back. One of the most powerful tools for developing self-awareness is self-reflection. Take some time each day or each week to reflect on your financial decisions. Ask yourself questions like, what am I spending my money on? Why am I making these purchases? What am I hoping to get from them? Be honest with yourself and be willing to confront any patterns or habits that may be holding you back. You can also try journaling or meditating to help you develop greater self-awareness. Writing down your thoughts and feelings can be a powerful way to process and release them, and meditation can help you cultivate a greater sense of calm and clarity. Ultimately, the key to overcoming financial struggles is to approach them with compassion and curiosity. It's not about beating yourself up over your mistakes or trying to force yourself into a certain mold. It's about being gentle with yourself and being willing to learn and grow. As Jade Warshaw says in her book, "Money's not a math problem." Financial struggles are not a reflection of your worth or intelligence. They are simply a sign that you need to make some adjustments, to learn some new skills, and to develop a more compassionate and mindful approach to financial management. So if you're struggling financially, I encourage you to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Don't just focus on the numbers, focus on the emotions and thoughts that drive your financial decisions. Take the time to develop greater self-awareness and be willing to confront any patterns or habits that may be holding you back. With patience, compassion, and practice, you can overcome financial struggles and develop a more mindful, more abundant approach to money. Section 2. When it comes to managing our finances, we often focus on the numbers, the budgets, and the spreadsheets. But what if I told you that the key to financial freedom isn't just about math? It's about something much more powerful, your mindset. In her book, Money's Not a Math Problem, Jade Warshaw reveals that our relationship with money is deeply connected to our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. And by shifting our mindset, we can transform our financial lives. Let's explore this idea further. Think about it. When you make financial decisions, what drives you? Is it fear, anxiety, or stress? Or is it confidence, excitement, and hope? Your mindset plays a significant role in shaping your financial behavior. For instance, if you believe that money is scarce, you might hoard it, fearing that you'll never have enough. On the other hand, if you see money as a tool for freedom and opportunity, you might be more willing to invest in yourself and take calculated risks. Jade Warshaw shares a fascinating insight on this topic. She says, when we focus on the math, we're only addressing the symptoms of our financial struggles. But when we focus on our mindset, we're addressing the root cause. In other words, by changing our mindset, we can change our financial reality. So, how do we do this? It starts with self-awareness. Understanding your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors around money is crucial. Take some time to reflect on your relationship with money. What are your values and goals? What triggers stress or anxiety when it comes to finances? By becoming more aware of your mindset, you can begin to identify patterns and areas for improvement. Now, let's talk about the benefits of a growth mindset in financial management. A growth mindset is the idea that your abilities and intelligence can be developed through effort and learning. When applied to finances, this means that you believe you can learn, adapt, and improve your financial skills over time. With a growth mindset, you're more likely to take ownership of your financial decisions, be resilient in the face of setbacks, and stay motivated to achieve your goals. But how do you cultivate a growth mindset? One strategy is to focus on progress, not perfection. Instead of beating yourself up over financial mistakes, use them as opportunities to learn and grow. Another approach is to reframe challenges as opportunities for growth. For example, instead of seeing a budgeting task as a chore, view it as a chance to develop your financial skills and take control of your money. I want to share a success story that illustrates the power of mindset shifts. Meet Sarah, a young professional who was struggling to pay off debt and build savings. She felt overwhelmed and anxious about her finances, and as a result, she avoided dealing with them altogether. But one day, Sarah decided to take a different approach. She started by reframing her mindset around money, focusing on abundance rather than scarcity. She also began to prioritize self-care and stress reduction, recognizing that her financial well-being was linked to her overall well-being. As Sarah continued to work on her mindset, she noticed a significant shift in her financial behavior. She became more confident and motivated, and she started to make progress on her goals. She paid off her debt, built an emergency fund, and even started investing in her future. Sarah's story demonstrates that by changing our mindset, we can change our financial reality. Now, let's talk about the benefits of mindfulness in financial decision-making. Mindfulness is the practice of being present and fully engaged in the current moment. When applied to finances, mindfulness can help you make more intentional and informed decisions. By being more aware of your thoughts and emotions, you can avoid impulsive purchases, reduce financial stress, and stay focused on your goals. For example, imagine you're at the mall and you see a pair of shoes you really want. In the past, you might have bought them impulsively without thinking twice. But with mindfulness, you take a step back and ask yourself, do I really need these shoes? Will they align with my financial goals? By being more mindful, you can make more intentional purchasing decisions that support your financial well-being. In conclusion, the power of mindset in financial management cannot be overstated. By shifting your perspective, building self-awareness, and cultivating a growth mindset, you can overcome financial obstacles and achieve your goals. Remember, it's not just about the math, it's about your mindset. By focusing on the root cause of your financial struggles, you can create a more positive and empowering relationship with money. As Jade Warshaw says, when we change our mindset, we change our financial reality. We become more confident, more motivated, and more empowered to achieve our goals. So, take the first step today. Start by reflecting on your mindset around money and see where it takes you. You might be surprised at the transformative power of mindset in your financial life. Section 3. Let's face it, budgeting can be a daunting task. We've all been there staring at a spreadsheet, trying to make sense of our expenses, and wondering where it all went wrong. But what if I told you that budgeting isn't just about numbers? What if it's actually about aligning your spending with your values and goals? That's exactly what Jade Warshaw argues in her book Money's Not a Math Problem. In this section, we'll explore the principles of a budgeting mindset and how to create a personalized budget that truly works for you. Imagine you're on a road trip and you're using a GPS to navigate. You punch in your destination, and the GPS gives you turn-by-turn directions. But what if you didn't know where you were going in the first place? You'd just be driving around in circles, wasting time and gas. That's what happens when we don't have a clear sense of our financial goals and values. We end up making random financial decisions, hoping for the best. But with a budgeting mindset, you get to define your destination, what's truly important to you, and then create a roadmap to get there. So where do you start? Jade Warshaw recommends beginning with your values. What matters most to you in life? Is it financial security, freedom, or adventure? Maybe it's a combination of all three. Take some time to reflect on what gets you excited, what makes you feel fulfilled. These values will become the foundation of your budget. Think of them as your North Star, guiding every financial decision you make. Now, let's talk about expenses. We all have them, and they can add up quickly. But here's the thing. Not all expenses are created equal. Some align with our values while others don't. That's why it's essential to categorize your expenses based on your values. For example, if you value financial security, you might prioritize expenses like saving for retirement or paying off debt. On the other hand, if you value adventure, you might allocate more funds for travel or hobbies. Jade Warshaw suggests using a simple framework to categorize your expenses: needs, wants, and goals. Needs are essential expenses like rent, utilities, and food. Wants are discretionary expenses like dining out or entertainment. Goals are expenses that align with your values and long-term objectives, like saving for a down payment on a house. By categorizing your expenses in this way, you'll get a clear picture of where your money is going and whether it's aligning with your values. Now, let's talk about a popular budgeting approach, the 50/30/20 rule. This rule suggests allocating 50% of your income towards needs, 30% towards wants, and 20% towards goals. It's not a hard and fast rule, but rather a guideline to help you prioritize your expenses. For example, if you earn $4,000 per month, you might allocate $2,000 towards needs, $1,200 towards wants, and $800 towards goals. Of course, this is just a starting point, and you'll need to adjust the proportions based on your individual circumstances. But here's the thing, budgeting isn't just about numbers, it's about making conscious choices that align with your values. It's about saying yes to expenses that bring you joy and fulfillment and no to those that don't. That's why it's essential to regularly review your budget and make adjustments as needed. Let's look at a case study of someone who successfully implemented a budgeting mindset. Meet Sarah, a freelance writer who values financial security and creative freedom. Sarah used to struggle with irregular income and unpredictable expenses, but she decided to take control of her finances. She started by tracking her expenses and categorizing them based on her values. She realized that she was spending too much on wants, like dining out, and not enough on goals, like saving for retirement. Sarah decided to implement the 50/30/20 rule, allocating 50% of her income towards needs, 30% towards wants, and 20% towards goals. She also started prioritizing expenses that aligned with her values, like investing in a retirement account and taking courses to improve her writing skills. As a result, Sarah felt more confident and in control of her finances. She was able to pursue her passion for writing without worrying about money. Jade Warshaw's advice on creating a budget that works for you is simple. Start with your values, prioritize your expenses, and regularly review your budget. Don't be too hard on yourself if you slip up. Just get back on track and keep moving forward. Remember, budgeting is a journey, not a destination. In conclusion, a budgeting mindset is not just about numbers, it's about aligning your spending with your values and goals. By categorizing your expenses, prioritizing your spending, and regularly reviewing your budget, you'll be well on your way to financial freedom. So, take the first step today, reflect on your values, and start creating a budget that truly works for you. Word count, 5177, Section 4. When it comes to managing our finances, we often think that the solution lies in finding the right budgeting app or spreadsheet. But the truth is, money management is just as much about our mindset as it is about the math. In her book, Money's Not a Math Problem, Jade Warshaw makes a compelling case for why our financial struggles are often rooted in our thoughts and emotions rather than just our bank balances. I want to share a personal story with you that illustrates this point. For years, I struggled with financial anxiety. I'd lie awake at night, worrying about whether I had enough money in my savings account or whether I was overspending on frivolous things. It got to the point where I'd avoid checking my bank statements altogether just because I was too afraid of what I might see. But one day, I realized that this fear was holding me back from achieving financial freedom. I was so focused on avoiding financial disaster that I wasn't taking any steps towards building wealth. So, I made a decision to face my fears head-on. I started by taking small steps, like checking my bank statements regularly and making a budget that actually worked for me. It wasn't easy, but slowly, I began to build confidence in my financial decisions. I started to see that I was capable of managing my money and that I didn't have to be controlled by fear. And that's when things started to shift. I began to make progress towards my financial goals and I felt more at peace with my money. Now, I'm not saying that it's easy to overcome financial fears and anxieties. But what I am saying is that it's possible. And it starts with acknowledging the impact that these fears have on our financial behavior. When we're driven by fear, we tend to make impulsive decisions that might not be in our best interests. We might avoid investing in the stock market because we're afraid of losing money, or we might overspend on things that don't bring us joy because we're trying to distract ourselves from our financial worries. But when we take a step back and look at our financial fears objectively, we can start to see that they're often rooted in negative thought patterns. We might be telling ourselves things like, I'll never be able to afford the things I want, or I'm not good with money. These thoughts can be incredibly limiting and they can hold us back from achieving our financial goals. So, how do we overcome these negative thought patterns? One strategy is to practice reframing. This involves taking a negative thought and turning it into a more positive, empowering one. For example, instead of saying, I'll never be able to afford the things I want, we could say, I'm capable of creating a budget that works for me and I trust myself to make smart financial decisions. Another strategy is to focus on self-care. When we're feeling stressed or anxious about our finances, it's easy to neglect our own needs. But taking care of ourselves is essential for building confidence and clarity in our financial decisions. This might involve taking time to relax and unwind, practicing mindfulness or meditation, or simply getting enough sleep. In her book, Jade Warshaw emphasizes the importance of self-compassion in financial management. She argues that we need to be kind and understanding with ourselves even when we make mistakes or encounter setbacks. This means acknowledging that we're human and that we're going to make mistakes sometimes. It also means being gentle with ourselves rather than beating ourselves up over our financial mistakes. When we practice self-compassion, we create a safe space for ourselves to explore our financial fears and anxieties and to develop a more positive, empowered mindset. I want to share a case study with you that illustrates the power of self-compassion in financial management. Sarah, a client of mine, had been struggling with financial anxiety for years. She tried various budgeting apps and spreadsheets, but nothing seemed to work for her. She felt like she was constantly failing and that she just wasn't good with money. But when Sarah started practicing self-compassion, everything shifted. She began to see that she wasn't a failure and that she was simply doing the best she could with the resources she had. She started to be kinder to herself and to acknowledge that it was okay to make mistakes. As a result, Sarah started to feel more confident in her financial decisions. She began to take risks and try new things, like investing in the stock market and starting a side hustle. And to her surprise, she found that she was actually good at managing her money. She was capable and competent, and she was achieving her financial goals. So, what can we learn from Sarah's story? Firstly, that self-compassion is essential for building confidence and clarity in our financial decisions. When we're kind and understanding with ourselves, we create a safe space for ourselves to explore our financial fears and anxieties. Secondly, that it's never too late to make a change. Sarah had been struggling with financial anxiety for years, but when she started practicing self-compassion, everything shifted. She was able to break free from her negative thought patterns and develop a more positive, empowered mindset. And finally, that financial freedom is within our reach. When we overcome our financial fears and anxieties, we open ourselves up to new possibilities and opportunities. We start to see that we're capable of achieving our financial goals and that we deserve to live a life of financial freedom and abundance. In conclusion, overcoming financial fears and anxieties is a journey that requires patience, kindness, and compassion. It's not always easy, but it's worth it. By reframing our negative thought patterns, practicing self-care, and cultivating self-compassion, we can build confidence and clarity in our financial decisions. And when we do, we open ourselves up to a life of financial freedom and abundance. Section 5, building financial resilience is a lot like building a strong foundation for a house. You want to make sure it's solid so that when life's unexpected storms come knocking, you're prepared. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in this section. We'll explore the importance of emergency funding, strategies for paying off debt, and tips for getting started with investing. By the end of this, you'll have a clear plan for building your own financial resilience. Let's start with emergency funding. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Jade, I'm barely scraping by as it is. How am I supposed to save up a bunch of money for emergencies? But here's the thing, emergencies are going to happen whether you're prepared or not. Your car will break down, you'll get sick, or you'll lose your job. It's not a matter of if, but when. And if you don't have a cushion to fall back on, you'll be forced to go into debt, which can be a major setback. Think of emergency funding like having a fire extinguisher in your kitchen. You hope you never need it, but if a fire breaks out, you'll be glad it's there. Jade Warshaw, in her book, Money's Not a Math Problem, emphasizes the importance of having 3 to 6 months' worth of expenses set aside in an easily accessible savings account. That way, when disaster strikes, you can focus on getting back on your feet, rather than worrying about how you're going to pay your bills. Now, let's talk about debt management. If you're like many people, you're probably carrying around some debt, whether it's credit card balances, student loans, or a mortgage. And it can feel overwhelming, like you're drowning in a sea of payments and interest rates. But here's the good news, with a solid plan, you can pay off your debt and start fresh. One strategy that works is the debt snowball method. This is where you list out all your debts, from smallest to largest, and focus on paying off the smallest one first. Once you've knocked that one out, you take the money you were paying on it and apply it to the next debt on the list, and so on. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill, gaining momentum as it goes. For example, let's say you have a credit card balance of $2,000, a car loan of $10,000, and a student loan of $30,000. You'd focus on paying off the credit card balance first, since it's the smallest. Once that's done, you'd take the money you were paying on it and apply it to the car loan and then finally the student loan. It might take some time, but with consistent effort, you can pay off your debt and start building wealth. Now, I want to share a success story with you. Meet Sarah, who was struggling to make ends meet on a tight budget. She had a bunch of credit card debt and was feeling overwhelmed. But she decided to take control of her finances and start building her financial resilience. She created a budget, started saving for emergencies, and began paying off her debt using the debt snowball method. It wasn't easy, but she stuck with it, and within a year, she'd paid off all her credit card debt and was starting to build up her savings. Sarah's story is a great example of what's possible when you focus on building your financial resilience. And it's not just about paying off debt, it's also about building wealth over the long term. That's where investing comes in. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, investing? Isn't that just for rich people? But the truth is anyone can invest regardless of their income level. And it's easier than ever with apps and websites that make it simple to get started. One strategy that's great for beginners is dollar cost averaging. This is where you invest a fixed amount of money at regular intervals regardless of the market's performance. It's like setting up an automatic transfer from your checking account to your investment account. Over time, you'll smooth out the ups and downs of the market and your investments will grow steadily. For example, let's say you decide to invest $100 per month in a diversified stock portfolio. You set up an automatic transfer from your checking account and every month, $100 is invested in the market. Some months, the market will be up and your investment will grow. Other months, it will be down and your investment will shrink. But over the long term, the trend is upward and your investments will grow steadily. Jade Warshaw emphasizes the importance of taking a long-term view when it comes to investing. It's not about trying to time the market or make quick profits, it's about building wealth over the long haul. And with dollar cost averaging, you can do just that without having to worry about the day-to-day fluctuations of the market. In conclusion, building financial resilience is all about creating a solid foundation for your finances. It's about having a cushion to fall back on in case of emergencies, paying off debt, and building wealth over the long term. By following the strategies outlined in this section, you can start building your own financial resilience and achieve long-term financial success. Remember, it's not just about the money, it's about the peace of mind that comes with knowing you're prepared for whatever life throws your way. Section 6, you've made it to the final stretch of our journey together, and I'm so proud of you. By now, you've got a solid understanding of how to tackle your finances with a mindset-focused approach. You've learned how to identify and challenge your limiting beliefs, create a budget that actually works for you, and make progress towards your financial goals. But here's the thing, the journey to financial freedom is rarely a straight line. There will be twists and turns, setbacks, and successes. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in this final section, maintaining momentum. Let's face it, setbacks are inevitable. You'll have months where you stick to your budget perfectly and then suddenly life will throw you a curveball. Your car will break down or you'll get hit with an unexpected medical bill. And just like that, all your progress will seem to unravel. But here's the thing, it's not about being perfect. It's about being kind to yourself when things don't go according to plan. I want to share a personal story with you. A few years ago, I was on a roll with my finances. I had just paid off a big chunk of debt and was feeling like I was on top of the world. And then disaster struck. I got into a car accident and had to shell out a bunch of money for repairs. I was devastated. All my progress, all my hard work seemed to be for nothing. But then I took a step back and reminded myself that setbacks are a normal part of the journey. I didn't beat myself up over it. Instead, I practiced some self-compassion. I told myself, it's okay, Jade. This is just a bump in the road. You'll get back on track. And that's exactly what I did. I adjusted my budget, made some sacrifices, and kept moving forward. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Because the truth is, it's not about the setbacks themselves, but how we respond to them. We can choose to let them derail us, or we can use them as opportunities to learn and grow. So, how do you stay motivated when the going gets tough? One strategy is to create a financial accountability system. This could be as simple as sharing your financial goals with a trusted friend or family member and asking them to hold you accountable. Or you could join a financial support group or find an accountability partner online. The key is to have someone who will encourage and support you even when you feel like giving up. Another strategy is to celebrate your small wins. This is something I talk about a lot in my work because I believe it's so important. We often get so focused on the big picture, the end goal, that we forget to celebrate the tiny victories along the way. But those tiny victories are what keep us motivated. They're what make the journey worth it. For example, let's say you've been working towards paying off a credit card balance. You've been making steady progress, but it's taking a while. Instead of waiting until the entire balance is paid off, why not celebrate each time you make a payment? Treat yourself to a nice dinner or take a relaxing bath. Do something that feels good, something that acknowledges your hard work. I want to share a case study with you. Sarah, a single mom of two, had been struggling to make ends meet. She was working multiple jobs just to keep food on the table. But she was determined to create a better life for herself and her kids. She started by making a budget and tracking her expenses. She cut back on unnecessary spending and started saving a little each month. And then, she did something brilliant. She created a success jar. Every time she made a payment on her debt, or saved a certain amount of money, she would write it down on a slip of paper and put it in the jar. At the end of each month, she would read through all the slips of paper and celebrate her successes. She'd take the kids out for ice cream, or watch a movie together. It was a small thing, but it made a huge difference. Kept her motivated, even on the tough days. The benefits of celebrating small wins are numerous. For one, it helps to build momentum. When we acknowledge and celebrate our progress, we're more likely to keep moving forward. It also helps to reduce stress and anxiety. When we're focused on the big picture, it can feel overwhelming. But when we break it down into smaller, manageable chunks, it feels more achievable. And finally, celebrating small wins helps to create a positive relationship with money. When we focus on what's going well, rather than what's not, we start to see money as a tool, rather than a source of stress. So, I want to leave you with a challenge. Take some time to reflect on your financial journey so far. What successes have you had? What setbacks have you faced? And how have you responded to them? Take a piece of paper and write down all the things you're proud of. Write down all the times you've stayed on track, all the times you've made progress towards your goals. And then I want you to celebrate. Treat yourself to something nice, something that feels good. Because let's be real, you deserve it. You've made it this far, and that's something to be proud of. As we wrap up this final section, I want to remind you that maintaining momentum is a journey, not a destination. It's a process of learning, growing, and adapting. It's a process of being kind to yourself, even when things don't go according to plan. And it's a process of celebrating your successes, no matter how small they may seem. You've got this. You've made it to the end of this book, and that's just the beginning. Keep moving forward, even when it's hard. Keep pushing towards your financial goals, even when it feels like the progress is slow. Because I promise you it will be worth it. Conclusion: you've made it to the end of Money's Not a Math Problem, and I'm so proud of you for taking this first step towards transforming your relationship with money. As we wrap up, let's take a moment to recap the key themes that have emerged throughout this journey. We've learned that managing our finances isn't just about crunching numbers or following a set of rules, it's about cultivating a mindset that sets us up for success. By focusing on our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors around money, we can break free from the cycle of stress and scarcity and instead create a life of financial freedom and abundance. One of the most powerful takeaways from this book is the importance of having a budgeting mindset. By shifting our focus from restriction to intention, we can create a personalized financial plan that aligns with our values and goals. We've also explored strategies for maintaining momentum, from creating a financial vision board to practicing gratitude in our daily lives. These tools have helped countless individuals, including Jade Warshaw, who has shared her inspiring story of achieving financial freedom through mindset shifts. I want to leave you with one final story that has stuck with me throughout this journey. It's about a woman named Sarah who was struggling to make ends meet despite working multiple jobs. She felt stuck and hopeless until she stumbled upon the concept of a financial vision board. She decided to give it a try, and what happened next was nothing short of miraculous. As she began to focus on what she wanted to create in her life rather than what she lacked, her entire mindset shifted. She started to see opportunities where she once saw obstacles, and her financial situation began to transform. Today, Sarah is living a life she never thought possible, and it's all thanks to the power of her mindset. As you close this book, I want to leave you with a challenge. What would your life look like if you were living in financial freedom? What would you create, achieve, and experience? Take a moment to imagine it, to feel it in your bones. That's what I want for you, a life that's full, rich, and meaningful. Remember, financial freedom is not just about money, it's about living a life that's true to who you are. As you go forward, I encourage you to hold onto the lessons you've learned here. Keep pushing forward, even when it gets tough. And most importantly, be kind to yourself along the way. You are capable of achieving greatness, and I have no doubt that you will. Congratulations on completing Money's Not a Math Problem. May the principles and strategies you've learned here guide you towards a brighter, more abundant future.